Okay. We're doing this now because if I don't do it now, would have wouldn't end up getting done. um, Also, to try to stay on track because I have a list of things to do here, and in no particular order, but I want to complete the things on that list. And so, with any luck, this will be the last part in this three-part series. In fact, I think I'm going to just safely say that this will be the last part of this series. And if there's any interesting tidbits left over, I'll just kind of meld them into another video, and move on to the next part of the project. Um, so we're looking at the conversations, some of the conversations I've had with Irenic, um, and the most recent conversations. On an interesting side note, I was in G-Man's chat last night, and apparently somebody over there, I'm not sure who, started deleting my comments in the side chat, and it wasn't anything um, like really bad. Uh, and now G-Man has made his video unavailable, at least the one that I was going to cover here. So I guess he got, I don't know, he got butthurt that I was using his thumbnail or something. Who knows? But never, engaged with me or said anything. I don't know. I think Blaster Master got timed out in that side chat as well. But anyway, we'll see. I might have pissed off the G-Man. Didn't even do anything yet.
To study theology or get on Discord at night, or whatever, and kill time. It was like they'd always be doing their round. Hold on, I got to do my rounds. 1 second, and then they'd be like, whatever, and then they'd be back. It was hilarious.
So yeah, that's what we're picking up on right here. Is as we were discussing the last one, there's a lot of people in the security industry, which I work in, that are kind of into these spaces, into studying philosophy and theology and things like that. And it provides a lot of downtime for that in the industry. So kind of something that Doubting Thomas, G-Man, FTW. Yeah.
It can be good for that, but it's also been like traumatic for me. So I get on the wrong shift, and then, it's just like I go sideways. If I get bored, I just start doing stupid things, and I can't really account for it, like, especially if I'm drinking, of course, That's another thing, too, like, like if you're, playing your own supervisor sometimes, there's no real accountability there. Like,
if you're gonna get away with keeping a bottle in your pocket and nobody's at the wiser, it's a temptation when especially if you're bored, right?
Yeah.
But the last thing you want to do is like, okay, so usually I don't know how it is when in your trade or whatever, but sometimes if there's, I don't know what kind of incident could happen at your place, whatever, but if there's like, I'm an electrician, so like if there was being at the city of Phoenix where I last worked, if there was an incident, they would automatically send you down to take a blood sample, just automatic if there was whatever. So I don't know if you'd be subject to anything like that.
We're kind of within like the bubble of almost like law enforcement fraternity. I mean, so it depends on how far it escalates. But yeah, if anything gets difficult, I mean, they're definitely going to check your toxicity or whatever. But as long as it doesn't go beyond that, I mean, I've had some sketchy situations where the cops kind of, they'll be just go over there and we'll take care of this, but it was kind of clear like that I was, probably not in the right, but I had a certain line where it's still fixable. And so we do get a little bit of leeway like that. But people also, especially out here, they'll just go out of their way to fuck with you. So, I mean, there's that aspect to it. But like where I'm at right now, that's, it's like a very low risk of incident. If anything happens, basically, I'm just eyes. I'm just a set of eyes. Like, the only incident I've had to write up since I've been out here, I'm gonna switch off my Bluetooth, is a car fire. And, I just called it in to my local fire dispatch, and they took care of it. So it was, it was like, I'm not
8-man versus God. Or wait, 8-man versus man God? Is that what he said? 8-man versus man God. I guess Irenic is the man god here. I didn't know. I don't know if I was watching the comments here. That's good though. That's funny.
Hands on it.
So I did ask Jill if he timed me out, uh, in the side chat, because I noticed he was there and he had a wrench, and I said hi and he didn't say hi back. So I don't know. Maybe Jill's mad at me.
Wait with that.
Come on in, Jill. Say that. Punk.
I was just talking about you.
Apparently, Jill doesn't like Irenic either.
Say again.
Oh, I was just talking about Jill.
Yeah,
We're talking to Peter W. And yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's teasing you, and he's ridiculing my open theism with the man god thing.
Oh, it's the open theism view. Okay.
Thing.
What is that open theism? Like God is a physical man? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, okay. So I have a particular view of it's just a world. Like I call myself a type of panentheist, if you know what that is. It's not pantheism, and it's not classical theism, but it's sort of just the view that God. Okay, so what led me into this direction? Should I take the time to explain? You got a minute?
Yeah.
So what led me into this direction was it's just thinking about the doctrine of creation ex nihilo. And just because I'm really concerned to hold. I want to hold a consistent, reasonable view, at least it's reasonable to me, right? I don't really care that it's not reasonable to someone else. I just have to base things on my own subjective experience and what I think, what I think's best to try to arrive at truth and this and that. But anyway, just so my, my motivation. So I'm like, but in thinking about this whole, creation from nothing, right? And, but okay, prior to that though, there's a famous question. I think it's Leibniz philosopher.
As just like on that tangent, because like I'm thinking about this, when they talk about ex nihilo, like the Bible doesn't actually say ex nihilo. Like they insert that in there. It just says that God created something. It doesn't say that nothing else existed prior to that. That's not actually what it says.
Yeah, I think he was in the 1500s. He lived in the 1500s. But he came up with this. It's just maybe it's a statement or whatever. But it's just this idea that I think the statement was something like this: out of nothing.
It says that the earth was void, right? It doesn't say that. Like, yeah, I'm trying to recall it off the top of my head. I just can't think of how they reconcile that.
Nothing comes, or basically you don't get something out of nothing. Right. So I'm trying.
I think that's good from Marcus Aurelius.
Okay, well, anyway, it became a.
But yeah.
At any rate, it became a thing with Leibniz, who was a famous mathematician or whatever, and a Christian guy or whatever. But, anyways, so,
I am correct though. That is crib from Marcus Aurelius.
And to me so to me, that makes sense. You don't get and I don't think it's any like with respect to God. How can God bring something out of nothing? That like to me, it's just as illogical as those questions about can God create a rock he can't lift? It's in that category. But people, they just easily accept it. I think it's just they just think it's no big deal. God can pull a rabbit out of a hat, if he wants to. He can just create it. He can just speak it, and then so I would, I was looking into this. I was trying to find some philosopher that would, first of all, recognize the problem.
Well, it's one thing to pull a rabbit out of a hat, right? Like say you could, like God could technically, do something like that, produce a rabbit where there was not one before. That's different from the contradiction, right? Because if God can do everything, right, like then he can't he can't create something that he can't like then handle, right? Like the rock that he can't lift, right? He can by definition do anything, so it would be a paradox for him to not be able to lift any given object. It doesn't matter, a rock, a slice of pizza, right? Like.
And they are, like Bill Craig, William Craig,
Yeah.
he I listened through some of his, I went and found where he'd be talking about this shit, and it, I was like, I knew you, like, because I didn't think, like, I was, was waiting to hear a good answer, but he gives no, the only reason they hold it is because it has to be true. You know what I mean? By necessity, they have. I mean, if everything else they believe is going to remain and hold, it has to be. It's almost necessarily the case that, because if God is separate, because part of this class.
He's rambling a bit. I mean, I'm still trying to kind of, but yeah, I mean, it seems like he is saying that God has to be a physical entity in the universe, right? Like
theism, the idea that most Christians hold, because the church early on, like the Catholic Church or whatever, early on in the days of Augustine or whatever.
But he said panentheism. I'm not even sure he has an accurate understanding of what that means.
They adopted or went with the classical theist model that was basically Platonism Christianized. The Neoplatonists of the day, and so you can research it. And Augustine was a big fan of Plato and all this stuff, like to the point where he says that he didn't even understand the Bible. He didn't even understand the Bible until I think it was Ambrose kind of showed him how if you look at God through this classical model, which this is where you get all these ideas about God. His ineffability, it kind of starts with simplicity, the doctrine of simplicity. Hold on one second.
Hey, it's Brojo. Sandy, no, this is not live. So I'm reviewing a couple conversations I had with Irenic about a year ago. And there's also included is a conversation he had with, there were a few people in there at one point, like Jill and Todd were in there. And then Sammy comes into the room at the end, which is really what we're kind of getting to with that one. But yeah, these are all just about a year ago.
So unicorns and fairies and leprechauns and Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot can exist because God. Yeah, I don't know if that was something that, from what I said.
Well, I think, so, and what you're alluding to is like, it can't be something that exists outside of the bounds of the constraints of what we call reality, right? Like the whole, I don't know if you've heard Texas argument, like the special place of existence.
I'm good to see you, by the way, Sandy. Yeah, this is the last time I spoke to Irenic. People thought it was recent, or at least I did. Yeah, no, I've had a few people ask. I mean, as far as recent for me, because like this is the last time I've engaged with them at all. But it's also recent comparative to, like, Irenic and I like had gotten into some pretty bitter disagreements in the past. Like when I was fresh on here, I let him trigger me a lot, and so I was consciously trying to kind of like avoid that happening, although he was pretty like chill. And these were like just, discussions he was having on his channel. So I tried to take a different tactic and just kind of, get to know the guy a little bit. And I think, it kind of works. But really I'd love to, dig up some of those past videos to like show, the contrast in some of the interactions we've had. But I even like noticed when he was on talking to Jill and Tog and St. Tommy and all those guys, his personality like shifts, with the crowd that he's around. And so I think that's kind of the character that we're all dealing with most of the time. Like if he gets into a group, he starts to become, a little unhinged.
It's like where God is outside of regular existence or whatever.
Are you talking about Serb, did you say?
Yeah.
Well, right now I'm just trying to explain how I get to this argument about this.
But in this one, he's saying he is panentheist. Oh, thanks, Sandy. Imagine that, Irenic getting into bitter disagreements. I know, right? It's unheard of.
To my view, what my view is, as opposed to what most Christians think, right? So anyways, so let me just, so basically I have this fundamental disagreement with, and a lot of this is tied to Jesus, the man Jesus, and what the Bible says about him. And because of this, it's because of classical theism and the idea that the divine and the human can never mix, right? Because there's the, by the nature of things, it can't happen. Right? God, the nature of God is nothing like man's nature on this model, right? Man is not God, and vice versa. Anyways, I don't think that's what the Bible teaches us. So, but anyways, so there's different reasons that, because they come up with this hypostatic union doctrine about Jesus, that because they know the Bible teaches he's a man. He's got to be a man, and he's not a Superman either. He's a man like us. That's the whole point. And so they have trouble with those texts that kind of point out, the strict humanity of Jesus, and so that they'll say, yeah, we believe Jesus was fully human, and then they'll say he was fully divine as well, right? But they say he had two natures. Now, first of all, when did you ever have a thing, like a person, that has two natures? Like a thing, I'm going to argue, and it's only because it's all fucked up. I mean, they have a bad starting point, and it causes these kind of issues. But a thing has a nature, okay?
I think he's being fairly reasonable here. Although, we could kind of quibble about the what you mean by nature, but I don't think it really matters. In the context of what he's saying is, obviously an issue with the Trinity, which I would tend to agree with. So.
Nature describes everything about the thing, right? So you don't get to, I'm just saying, they're cheating by even introducing this idea that a thing could have two natures. Does that make sense? What do you think of this? At least my reasoning so far against this.
I mean, I don't think that's quite what it says. Like in the argument for the Trinity, right, is this a singular being. Wait, the one nature, but encompassing three beings, I guess, kind of thing. But if you're talking about just the divinity of Jesus, you don't even need the Trinity for that, right? But just that when he says that he is God, Sandy says he can be very reasonable unless he feels insulted. And I relate to that. He has strengths just as we all do. I hear he bakes a good loaf of bread. Bread. But he, and again, this is from the first one, when we're listening to him talking to those guys, he openly acknowledges that he sometimes at least enjoys triggering people. If he knows that something he's doing is triggering somebody, he'll do it over and over again to try to get them to go off, which is what he did to me in the past over Wild Hearts. After we had a thorough conversation, I explained, whatever a thing to him, doesn't matter what it was. It's irrelevant now. The point is that he kept intentionally misrepresenting the thing throughout the conversation after that, just to piss me off. And it worked. I was like, hey, you stop doing that. We just talked about this. Can you please stop? And then finally I was just like, you know what? Fuck you, dude. One of those types of deals. So, Luena, it's somewhat normal for people's personalities to vary in big groups, right? Possibly, yeah. I mean, it's more of a behavior issue. It's, and yeah, it is pretty standard. It's like, oh, I'm with, the bros, so all of a sudden I'm going to just, kind of, I don't want to, point out all the, racist, sexist, bigoted, things, and it's like, oh, well, we're just being funny. We're just clowning around. Okay, but I don't know. I just don't get by that. I'm not with that. I don't clown around like that. If I do, usually it's in the context of making fun of somebody who does that. If that makes any type of sense. Sandy says he's an expert at triggering people. He carries it a bit further than normal people. Yeah. Especially when he starts screaming and insulting people. Yep, exactly.
Well, I think it's complicated because I think it's all in the nature of the thing, right? But when we're talking about people, we kind of are divided in our nature, in our minds, and so that's actually not really unusual. When you think about the way that people really behave, and like say one thing and do another.
Yeah, but that's true of all humans, even Jesus, right? That's my argument is, look, whatever we experience, that was the limitations that he took on when he decided to become a man. And it's anyway, so part of my view actually, involves the image of God. So like, anyway, my panentheism basically is the idea that no, God didn't create the world out of nothing. And one of the key verses that I ran across while I was thinking about all this, because I was like, I'm trying to see what kind of model of the whole universe does the Bible paint, if I can find out, like what did the authors say about it? Anyways, if you look in the Psalms, Psalm 90 is a psalm of Moses, at least that's who's it's been accredited to, right? So he opens up the psalm, and anyway, I won't botch it, but basically he says he indicates Moses uses the picture of God birthing the universe, like a birth, an analogy, right? So if you look at a mother, okay, so here's the mother that's pregnant, okay, so God is in an analogy, like a pregnant mother, okay, and then like a mother births the child. Now the child definitely shares the nature of the mother, but the child is not the mother. There's a complete different person, right? Once the birth occurs, there's a separate. So that's like the clearest analogy I can get to, like, and then so and what this entails is that God is actually a temporal being that has always existed in space. And my view of time is that time is just a perception. It's like there's no such thing as time, really. It's just we perceive moments.
I'm trying to get this argument. So we came out of God, like everything came out of God physically, like literally came out of, birthed like a mother. Like that's what I get from that. And I think they were making some joke in the other stream about this, something having to do with female genitals or something like that. But anyway, screaming on a stream is just annoying to those watching. I agree.
Progressing, right? We perceive moments of change, basically, is what appears to us as time. And so I'm a presentist. So I believe only the present exists at any moment, kind of that idea. The past doesn't exist any longer. We remember it. There's relics, all that stuff. But there is no future. And this is part. This is kind of goes with my open theism. So
it is always now. Sam Harris, very good. Yeah, I mean, as a matter of like experience, that's true or whatever. I think I'm almost repeating Sam Harris now. But history actually happened, right? See, that's what's undisputed. Now we have no way of predicting the future, right? But history really happened. So the fact that it's not, the present is the present, right? And we can't go back and change history doesn't mean that like history doesn't account for certain things, right? And we make many of our predictions about the future, whether accurate or inaccurate, we base them on what we know about the past. And that's the only way that we can like act in an informed way in the present, is to have some knowledge of history and try to use that to make predictions about future outcomes.
I don't believe there is a future for God to know, especially since we're all free, and I don't believe God determined everything, like Jill might think, Yeah, afterbirth, right, St. Tommy? Let me see.
So free will for sure. So
yeah,
afterbirth. Yeah, that's what they were saying in that other conversation. It was about the afterbirth stuff like that.
Yeah. Of God, like being a woman who births something that's kind of like itself. Well, that would paint the image then of God as like another complete universe, right?
Well, not necessarily. Like on my view. Okay. So I was starting to get this.
Oh yeah,
but, so
yeah.
God is,
I think I'm leading into like a multiverse type of thing or something here, where like if we came out of the other thing, it must be another whole thing in and of itself, right?
A temporal being. He's always.
So you're saying that God gave birth to the universe, then God must be a universe.
Existed in space and time. And my view is that it wasn't until he created, in other words, a change occurred from his eternal existence just with himself, until he decides to create. And that would be the start of time, quote unquote, as we know it, as the perception of moments of change kind of thing. Okay, that's a little aside there, but
That's a little rambling there, I think. I don't know. Speedy Romans, hey, good to see you. Peace.
Yeah. So, okay. So what that means is that God is, the nature of God is, okay. And this just gets into the difference. Okay. So I want to get into what God is made of, what kind of stuff, because if he's temporal, he exists. And okay. So then I'll go to the Bible and just understand that God is a spirit. So he exists as a spirit in a spirit form. And we know that spirits are invisible. Like that's
God must be a girl. That's the conclusion one would reach. But then, so now he's like, okay, God must be made out of stuff, but that stuff is spirit. So spirit is like a physical thing now, like a matter?
Language of the Bible, visible and invisible, not immaterial. That would be more like a Greek term or part of that classical theism.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. He's saying the spirit is a physical thing.
The Bible doesn't really use these kind of terms very often. Like, Paul uses immortal, but like all these kind of terms we use for God in the church today, like I'm trying to think of some of them, like omnipotent, like all the omnis and then the m's, the I am words. A lot of these are really tied to classical theism. But anyways, on my model, God does exist temporally, so he exists in a spirit form. And then like I see Jesus talking to people about his Father, and he says, "You've not seen him at any time, and you do not know his form." Okay, so that indicates to me, by Jesus' use of the word form, that in my mind, that is the idea of a limit to God. He doesn't fill all space. Like he doesn't have to. I guess he can. Like however large he is in his form is as large as what anything could be on my model. Does that make sense? Like imagine a big amoeba or something, a spiritual amoeba, but it's got boundaries, right? And in that sense, because it has boundaries, it can birth out something. If it wanted to, it could be outside of itself, in every sense, maybe, but
yeah, he doesn't have to like physically touch anything to will it to happen. So it could exist over here in this space that we just can't see, and then will things with his God amoeba mind, right?
Anyways, the idea is that
his spiritual amoeba mind. Yeah, he's a giant spiritual amoeba.
First of all, this idea overcomes this, to me, unreasonable view of creation from nothing. That's like a non-starter. I mean, that's weird. So we have God issuing out of his own, so maybe this spiritual stuff, and we know something about these spiritual, we know something about spiritual beings like angels and stuff. First of all, we know that angels aren't always visible. Sometimes they're invisible. So what does that tell you about the nature of God's stuff that he's made of? It can either be visible or invisible. And so what about humans? Are they visible or invisible? Well, humans are visible.
Wait, are angels made of the same stuff as God? I guess according to this, yes.
So, but Jesus became a human being. So we know the spiritual can become.
God lives in Bikini Bottom. Indeed.
Human, basically. So anyway, it's all, so I think Jesus, the man in God's mind, I believe thinking about the man that, or this human being that would be issued forth, the model of what we look like. I believe Jesus, representing the first human being, is the prototypical man after which Adam was actually created. So that's how Adam was created, in the image of God, because the word that became flesh in God's mind.
So Adam and Jesus were twin brothers,
and was the original man. Understand? Like in the GM engineer shop, they would create the first model of a car out of clay, and that would be a prototype after which all of them would be based. That idea. Okay, so I just want to be clear on so a lot of biblical stuff comes together because I don't accept this doctrine of creation ex nihilo. And so what that means is also human beings are divine in nature. So there's no problem with all the texts in the Bible that talk about the divinity of Jesus, because there's certainly a lot of texts that talk about the divinity of man themselves, especially in Acts 17. If you go through that entire chapter, how Paul argues about God and man and his offspring. He calls us, or Paul says we're the offspring of God. He uses that word for offspring, which, again, so that doesn't put a picture of creation from nothing in your mind. Offspring, no, that we're more like a chip off the old block than creation created out of nothing. So anyway, I kind of done with that. But so I'm a panentheist, which means I believe that there's God and the world, but they both, I'd have to say, I wouldn't say the world is eternal, but
I really don't think he knows what panentheism means. Unfortunately, my background noise is coming from my mic. I think I'm out in the wind or something. Helena says, "My God wears one piece," and John Lovell says, "Who is talking to? What? I'm talking to Irenic in this conversation. This is a couple of conversations I had. This one and another one we're looking at here, but they're like a year old now. So, yep.
It has an eternal foundation because it's made from the same stuff God is, who's always been.
But yeah, he's explaining his view of like panentheism to me, and he's telling me, I mean, he said a lot of stuff that doesn't really. I mean, I kind of get where he's going, but he said something like God is a spiritual amoeba, and he's as large as a thing possibly can be, and it might not be visible to us, but it's a physical thing somewhere in the universe that gave birth to everything else in the universe, like physically. I guess that's kind of where we're at right now. I'm still trying to digest it. I don't know, you know. I speak a special kind of English. I think we all do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I think he created at a point in time. So I don't know. Oh, sorry, Saint. I've been
Okay.
sorry, Saint Tommy. I hope you weren't waiting very long. I didn't hear the blip.
I know you were being so explicit with your understanding of Almighty God. Yeah.
I just had my eyes closed and I was rambling. You heard me. Well, I'm glad you're here, so it'll liven up the conversation.
Thank you. I have a question. Is there a reason I don't have a wrench? You're not holding a grudge, are you?
No, I just needed to give Spooky a wrench. I'll give you one. I have to get out of here and into YouTube.
Oh, yeah, that's all.
Okay,
That's all. I was just wanting to make sure. I was just wanting to make sure I hadn't pissed you off or something.
St. Tommy,
Plus-
shut up.
Plus, YouTube censors if you don't have a wrench. I know you're a loyal type. I know you are. I know.
And I'm getting to it. Let's see.
You just hurry the fuck up.
I was just glad that this thing is going out tonight. The skies are clear. It's been hot, but
And just to be clear, like, so when I got kicked out of G-Man's last night, like, I'm pretty sure, like, nothing I did could have been construed. Like, it had to have been a moderator. Like, there's no way it was YouTube censoring me because they're talking about slavery in the Bible, and all I said was, like, that the point is, why would you use a book that condones slavery for moral guidance? That was all I said. And then I got time. No, he didn't time me out, but my comments kept getting deleted after that.
it looks like at least I'm getting a signal.
Oh, good. The wrath of God is passing.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
They let other atheists stay. Like there was this Canadian atheist guy. They let him stay. He was saying all kinds of stuff, like, and they didn't kick him out. But I got immediately booted as soon as I said anything.
It'd be a blessing.
Yeah.
Although I'm not feeling the blessing part. Okay, St. Tommy. Oops. Okay, you should have a wrench, bro.
Okay.
Anybody else want a wrench? Looks like I already gave Brojo a wrench.
Oh, there it is. I'm wrenched up. I feel protected, and
Now
I
you're
feel
a true
precious.
mechanic.
I feel special. I feel commissioned and powerful. Yep, and
I don't know.
trusted.
Your wrench isn't coming up on the StreamYard yet. I guess.
Well, I've got it.
Maybe you have to do a new post. Yeah. Oh, there it is. There's your wrench. Look at
Yeah.
that.
All right.
All right. So what's new with you?
Oh, everything. I went to Dollar Tree and got some Dutch cleaner, and I have the cleanest toilet in my small town. Yep. Isn't that exciting?
Did I ever clean your bathroom up or no? It seems like I have a memory of doing that or something.
No. Okay, I got a new one.
Well, it was the part where you said the hot water.
If we ever
So,
get on,
yeah, I was, thankfully I don't have a large body to wet and shower and everything, but so I just put it on a kind of a drip, and I don't know, I can shower for about 20 minutes with hot water. I just take it easy, which I might do in the wintertime, you know.
I don't know if this
Yeah, I try
conversation
and
is honestly going to go anywhere after this.
shower.
Well, I've done some time being homeless and stuff, but I live in a house now, so I try to shower daily whenever I can.
Or and get a shower, you know, when you want, or that, you know, while they're maybe
My-
traveling or something.
When I was at my real bottom several years ago, my ex and I, we lived out of vehicles for almost 3 years straight.
Into
There's some deep ape lore in this conversation.
reality.
I definitely decently
I think
overshared.
it's probably.
It's not like it's not anything that I wouldn't say anyway, but given that, like, I felt like he really downplayed it, like when he was telling me his story about his upbringing versus like he was talking to Sammy, he just came right out and said, "Oh yeah, my dad was going around these churches and preaching and stuff," and he never said any shit like that to me, you know, because that makes a difference. John Lovell says Trump says that the showers don't work. Yeah. Are we talking about like showers for the homeless or just in general? I mean, I don't know. Because I've heard they trash those places. We have them here, like the mobile showers for the homeless people, and most of them are pretty cool. But like some of them will go in there and just thrash the place. Trump has to flush his toilet twice. Oh yeah. They want better like water pressure and shit or something. I don't know, man. I lived in a fifth wheel trailer as a youngster too, and so I could say, even in like the motels. You ever been in like a motel shower at 6 a.m. or something? It's not the most pleasant experience. Showers in the penthouse. Yeah, blame your plumber. It's not the water supply. It was the guy that installed the plumbing.
Of him. So I would choose option B, the birth method. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you just alluded to, you know, there's several verses that, you know, all things are of him,
Okay,
by him.
here we go. We got back into it here.
Pretty rough.
So what do you think, St. Tommy? Did God create the world out of nothing, or did he birth it into reality?
I think it's probably of him. So I would choose option B, the birth method. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you just alluded to, you know, there's several verses that, you know, all things are of him, by him, and through him. You know, I mean, it hardly leaves any other option of, by, and through.
I'm not ready to accept worship yet, though. You know, I think there's a distinct.
Oh, as a
difference.
divine being, you mean?
Yeah. If indeed I am a new creation in Christ Jesus, which I do believe that I am. I don't think.
So essentially, you know, like in this version, they're like, you know, God existed in the universe and he was made of stuff. And he took some of his own stuff and he used it to birth the universe that we're in. But we're also in the same universe. But we're, like, I guess it makes sense if you don't think about it.
That I accept the worship. You know, so don't be getting on your knees.
Any,
you know,
any of those peeps out there that accuse you of illegitimately burying that title you took to yourself can go fucking pound sand.
It's biblical. It's biblical. All the Bible or a Bible says that all who hold belief or have ever held belief, you know, even if you currently have brain damage or ate too much lead-based paint chips or whatever, too many Grateful Dead shows, anyone who is a believer is a new creation in Christ Jesus and indwelt with the Holy Spirit. Even brothers.
Does that mean you can call him a saint?
I guess. I mean, if they wouldn't, you know, break down and cry or throw a tantrum or something, you know.
Be a saint though.
It's a delicate thing. It's a delicate thing to tell a man that he's righteous in Christ Jesus.
Silly people, superstition based on a book and other magic stuff. Yeah.
You know,
Why would you do
delicate
that?
matter.
Yeah, not everybody can receive it.
Yeah, it's controversial. How could it be? How could it be?
Don't you have to be martyred to be a saint?
According to some, but shit, little popes are a dime a dozen. Who's got time to wait, you know, for a coronation? You know, shit.
I think I tried to ask the question and no one was answered me, so I maybe looked it up real quick. I'm not sure.
Those
But
people
no,
are-
no.
Oh, you're here.
I think the Apostle Paul wrote some letters to some believers and saints at Corinth or somewhere. Yeah,
So, St. Tommy, are you watching the screen?
yeah, I'm watching. Yeah, yeah.
Can you see
I
me?
see your
Okay, so
blessed
you're-
countenance.
Okay, so if you remember my camper, where that pillow is, the Bluntzilla pillow, that would be the corner. Like once you walked into the door, to your immediate left that's the front wall, and back by where the bed was, right? So I'm sitting where the old bed was. Okay, so there's the window, whatever, and then there's the door. So this is I don't know if you can make that out. Oh, let me highlight my screen, I guess.
Looks palatial.
Yeah, so here's my foot. But I tore everything.
Yeah, he's scatterbrained here. John says you have to go to medical school when you are dead, and then you have to cure somebody to be a saint. Is that how it works?
To the right there, where that plywood was, that was a refrigerator unit. Was there, Okay, so in the corner now, that's my washer. That's a washer dryer unit. That thing looks like a washing machine. And then on the very left is a little galley.
Didn't Saint Valentine, didn't he go around shooting people with arrows or something?
Kitchen, right? Like it's a, there's a refrigerator right there on the very left. You can maybe see it. It's all black. Okay, and on the other side of the refrigerator, there's like a 25-inch full stainless sink that's like 20 by 25, and it's like 10 inches deep, right? It's nice. And then next to that is a little bit of cabinet area. I got a furnace. My little furnace is right there. But then I have two 18-inch cabinets from IKEA, full cabinets. And then I have behind that tile there, and to the left is the range where the original cooktop oven, And so with all that in place, there's a lot of room. There's still a lot of room. So what
No, that was the God of Love, which is really me.
I'm going to do is, I'm still doing stuff. I'm going to build a little wall to make a doorway into this place. One thing I had, those hanging bamboo strings, or I'm sure you've seen them. They can show artwork or whatever.
Tucked away?
Oh, yeah, I have it. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, Japanese room dividers. Yeah. Something you could pop in or pop out, or when you have guests, that kind of thing.
Oh, I'm not going to worry about the privacy. There's a little bit of a privacy issue, but two adults can handle,
Somebody can step outside for a minute, no big deal. Yeah.
So I have quite a bit of room on the other side of this bed, at the end of this bed, and then between there and the doorway on the right side there too. So I'm going to build a little, I don't know. I'm going to build, the wall. Once I get the wall up, I'll be able to put a nice TV on this bedroom side, and I'll connect that to my internet.
Should I just say, build that wall? Helena said 2 verified miracles in service to God and or the church, I believe. Oh, okay.
Stop. Have connectivity if I want to or whatever, but that would be kind of cool. But I want to set it up so maybe one day if I ever get hooked up with some woman or whatever, if that happens, this could be in shape to rent out. Somebody. As like a nice. Let me change my screen here. If I just have to do this.
Meow, hello. Todd, good to see you.
Did we lose Spooky Bed Hair?
Was that Spooky?
No, it was me.
Okay.
No, that wasn't Spooky Bed Hair. That was
8-man.
Yeah.
We love us some spooky bed hair around here. Bedharians unite.
Stop for a minute there. We might get some more people in here, like Jill.
Hanging out with the elect. All right.
And I don't know what this was about, actually. Well, I guess it was.
Okay. I don't think I come back into that room. I think I was like, nah, I'm good. Not sure what happened, but.
Just give me a minute. I'm awake from my mic, so.
Okay. Yeah, I had one as well. Unfortunately, so I had the full original conversation with he and I. I then repurposed it into a response video on my other channel, and I did I think it was a 3-part response video.
We're talking about Darth Dawkins right now.
Because I was pretty pissed off about the whole thing. I didn't really express myself on that stream, so I went out and I did that. But in the meantime,
a stream or a YouTube?
It was a YouTube stream, yeah. And so I cut the original stream out when I did that. I took it down. So the only thing I have left is the very tail end of that conversation where, the one question I got to ask him at the end of the conversation was, whether he actually cared about, saving anybody's souls or whether he was just, basically out to,
Yeah.
And so he did kind of profess that, oh yeah, well I want people to come to Jesus. I'm not just out here to be an asshole. And so that's all I got left out of it.
Said that?
Because
he actually said
I
that?
lost my other channel.
That? You got that on tape? Him saying that?
Yeah, I'm paraphrasing, but yeah, I do. Yeah.
I don't think I ever heard him say that.
I mean, I not like that, not in those words, but that's interesting. I just mean because a
That's the only reason I saved it, because it's pretty rare.
lot of people
Hold
put
on.
that kind of question to him over the years. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if it's necessary to watch the screen, but I'll start this now. Okay. So
Cool.
you'll hear my voice. So if you want, just interrupt. I'll stop it. Okay.
Okay, 45 minutes.
Dude, listen to me.
This is all Rod. This is an idea.
You are, listen to me, dude. You are delusional. You are like a cultist.
Well, you'd have to demonstrate
You
that.
need, okay, please don't overtalk me.
Hey, Dee, whenever you're done with this atheist, I wanted to ask you about another issue regarding determinism, if you didn't mind.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So it seems to me like I was listening to some Christian podcast, and they were talking. They were talking about determinism in relationship to the atheists that are would hold to determinism. But in light of this, like, so I was thinking about like, and you're not a determinist, right? You believe in free will, is that right?
Well, I believe that the God who exists, he's absolutely sovereign, and he has history all planned out. But within that, he endows man with the ability to make some choices.
Candy?
You already know if I'm going to take it.
Wouldn't be much of an oracle if I didn't.
But if you already know, how can I make a choice?
I don't like to use the word free will because people misconstrue many different.
I think it's great that Tom Rabbit clipped this and put all that in there, because it gives a good. It's ironic to me that maybe Irenic does make the connection here. I don't know.
Okay, but you're not a compatibilist either, right? You wouldn't call yourself a.
I would
Do
say.
you hold to the tulip? Do you hold to the? Okay.
No,
Right.
I'm not a Calvinist.
So you can allow for that man is actually in some sense, or at sometimes free to do some things or something like that. Anyways.
Well, in
John Will says Irenic Pelagian sounds like an ingredient in a mouthwash.
defense of the Calvinists, who are not Calvinists, but in their defense, they say God can ordain events even where individuals have the capacity to make some free choices.
Right. The freedom of man is compatible with God determining.
For example, God ordained that Pontius Pilate was going to order the execution of Jesus, but within God's plan, his ordination, Pilate freely chose to execute Jesus, and he could have chosen otherwise.
Right. So
some Calvinists will say no, he couldn't have chosen otherwise because it was ordained of God. But you see, that's not a problem on my view. Okay,
mm-hmm.
that God is so sovereign that he can incorporate.
I just want to pause that for a minute. So I never am able to get. I just thought I better it might be helpful just to point out the point I was going to try to get to. I never was able to get to this point because, Darth is in asking me some questions. I'm answering them, and it gets off on these rabbit trails about what I believe, rather than I wanted to ask a question that had nothing to do with my beliefs. Anyone could have asked the question I was asking, but it got sidetracked. But and made a fun video or whatever. But that's fine. But
that's what Darth does.
Anyways, I was trying to get to this point that on determinism, and I don't know if this argument, but it came to me that, and it has to do with the fact that in the Westminster Confession, chapter 3, talking about God's decrees, it says that God has decreed whatsoever comes to pass, right? And yet He does so, making use of secondary causes, when need to, that kind of thing. And but the fact is, there's nothing, on the Calvinistic view, there's no free molecules in the universe. The reason God knows.
No free molecules in the universe. God is a magic guy, so he can do anything. Yeah. There's nothing he can't do.
The whole future.
Including creating a contradiction that entails something that he can't do. Good morning, my awesome life. Good to see you.
Is because he decreed what the future would be, and he's carrying out exactly as he knows it to be, precisely, right? There's no escaping God's decree of what he decreed. Okay, so that's one major pillar of what you need to understand about this argument. So if that's the case, now you come to the Christian.
There is no escaping the decree. So, ultimately, all those, whatever, the smaller actions that you can take. So there's some free will, but it's limited because you can't escape the decree, right? God can make a square a circle? Why, yes, he can. Yeah.
And
God can make 2 + 2 = 5.
I want to know. Okay, so it has to do with a Christian. Actually, it applies to all human beings and all thoughts. But I want to single out the Christian who who has certain beliefs about God and how it is that they come to have those beliefs. And it seems to me on the Calvinistic paradigm, what you actually have is a case where God is determining what false beliefs. God is the person who determines all belief states, whether they're true belief states. In other words, the person believes what the person believes in other words, what the person believes is true, right? And he also decrees all false belief states where even if the people think what they believe is true, it's false, right? Or whatever. So
Are we following this? Does this make sense? I just feel like it doesn't make sense.
So when you have let's see, what's the rest of this argument? So
it contradicts any notion of free will, right?
Well, it's not that. No, this isn't about free will. Actually, it's an argument about rationality. There's,
Thank you, Sandy. I wasn't sure if it was just
there's no
me.
rational thinking and processing and debating of what I need. What should be believed. Like, the rational world is a world of clashing ideas, and figuring out which is true, and like by whatever means, right? Truth seeking is not a simple task, right? In a way, like.
Well, John Level, that's why you haven't lost your mind yet. Because if you pay attention to these people for any length of time, you'll start to question your sanity for sure.
But the thing is, if why? Okay, so if the reason people believe things is because God has determined them to have their belief state that they have, if that's the case, then nobody is rational, in a sense. Does that make sense?
I was thinking he was gonna say that why don't all people believe in God? But anyway, yeah. Why would you even be rational? Hey, bro, Joe, good to see you. Hi. John Level says they live all around me. Oh, so you've got like an adaptive a blocker in there or something. You just tuned it out. Bridges says, note to self, save brain cells and don't stay long. Yeah.
There is no reason going on. It's just God determining belief states.
Right.
And it's escaping me now how I worked that out in the final
White Christian nationalists. White Christian nationalists. Do they have parades?
It basically it works out to where, it's not a reasonable. It's I don't know. I don't know. To me, that seems really problematic, to have somebody's view that it's not based in reason. And it has to do with this fact that God is determining the false belief states of Christians. Because they have to admit they have
the same book, the same Bible.
That they do have some false beliefs. I mean, they usually will admit that some of the beliefs they believe are that they hold are false. Well, how did that happen? Well, God determined. Okay, so anyway, like I said, I just wanted to make that point because, like you probably saw my introduction. I brought up this determinism idea, and then because I wasn't.
So Christians admitting that they don't know everything or they have some wrong beliefs, I guess. That was kind of a long-winded way of saying that. John Lovell says the Nazi Jesus lovers are all around me. That's terrible. Let's get out of there. Get to a safe place.
I was under the impression that he wasn't anything like a Calvinist, but it was this conversation that clued me in. He actually is a Calvinist. He's just some kind of variety of one. Like, did you catch that? Anyways,
yeah, but he said he's not. But
I know he said he's not a Calvinist, but if it smells like shit and it looks like shit and tastes like shit, it's shit. Anyways.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I have tasted shit from my kid once, but okay.
Into a flawless, sovereign plan of history, everything that comes to pass, including the choices of agents in certain matters, like Pontius Pilate.
How did you know?
Oh, what's really going to bake your noodle later on is, would you still have broken it if I hadn't said anything?
Right, even if they were free to some extent, but God is able to accomplish what he wants anyways. I mean, regardless. Okay, all right, so that's kind of a beside the point that I want to bring up.
So to just give me a quick example, Pontius Pilate was about to, suppose it's the case where Pontius Pilate decided not to execute Jesus, and he said to the Jewish Supreme Court, I find no fault in this man. Right?
Yeah,
Pilate's wife came to him and she had a terrible dream, and she said, "Had nothing to do with this man."
Right.
Okay. Now, Pilate decided he wasn't going to execute Jesus.
Yeah.
But then what happened after that?
The Jews insisted.
The Jewish Supreme Court said to him, if you don't execute this man,
right, they threatened him.
You are no friend of Caesar's. What people miss in that important statement is the Jewish Supreme Court held great influence on the authorities back at Rome, right? Because they didn't want the Jews rebelling and having to have the Romans fight the Jews all over again. So they basically were threatening Pilate.
Is this true? Well, maybe. They believe it is. Certainly. There's no safe place from Jesus. Oh, no. Sorry.
Well, that was ordained.
Yeah. Jesus said he was the king of the Jews, and the Romans did not like that. Yeah, I do recall that part. I know that the Jews did, in fact, they were pretty pissed off, right? Like, they were considered a nuisance. But the Romans just kind of wanted to, like, they were giving them the okie-doke. They were giving them the runaround. They're like, yeah, whatever. Like, you guys go deal with your own bullshit. We don't have time for this, right? Like, is Irenic still banished from the Cafe Brojo? Who was there witnessing this private convo between Jesus and Pilate? Yeah. This is just a story. Jesus was executed. He was not a sacrifice. Yeah, exactly. It's not how that works. Mouse and Life says some Gnostics believe Jesus never died on the cross.
God's plan. So Pilate decided not to execute Jesus, but God knew that when they threatened him with reporting it to Rome, then he would voluntarily give in. So that's all part of God's sovereign and plan of ordination.
There was no really stopping it.
Yeah, I think it's clear. You can see, you can be right in Pilate's head, knowing all these conflicts going on in his head. But ultimately, his career and everything, his reputation, is what he was going to uphold. So he handed Jesus.
I certainly believe that all choices, even acts of evil, are all in God's sovereign plan of ordination. But that doesn't exclude that people have the capacity to make some acts of agency.
Okay, so my argument, so this idea that I want to discuss has to do with like the Westminster Confession, where any idea that God has decreed whatsoever comes to pass. Right, and yet he uses secondary means, right? So we can grant that. But the fact is, if Calvinism or whatever is true, then God actually has determined whatsoever comes to pass. So, in my view, that means the belief states that we hold are some things that come to pass that God has determined. Now, by whatever means, we have to keep that.
We don't know the mind of God and how He works all things together.
Right. Okay, but
so.
No, I did not block him. Irenic left while calling me N-word. But if all he can do is yell and not have a simple convo, he can. Yeah.
So, right, but now here's the problem I see. Now,
well, I think that's pretty clear then.
As a Christian, I do not follow Calvinism. It's my belief. I have beliefs about soteriology.
Do you believe that your performance will in any way influence God in letting you into heaven and keeping you out of hell?
Not keeping me out of heaven, but I think it might influence
Will God factor in your performance after you come to faith? Will God factor in your performance in His decision as to whether to keep you out of hell or not?
No.
Okay, so do you believe that salvation is by grace through faith alone, apart from all performance and works?
Yeah.
Then why do you call yourself a Pelagian?
Because I deny original sin, that doctrine.
Well, why would you do that when the Bible's very clear on that?
Well, I don't believe it's clear.
See, this is where we got sidetracked.
So Adam and Eve didn't sin?
Well, of course they sinned. Well,
Right.
I'm talking about the doctrine of original sin that Augustine put forward.
Yeah, Darth is the great
you
interrogator.
don't believe that Adam and Eve passed on a sinful inclination biologically?
Why would I?
Why? Because it's exemplified throughout the New Testament. Look at Paul's writings.
Well, what about Eve? See, I think we have the same nature as Eve had, because she had this inclination.
It is though. It's all crazy talk.
Our ability to be tempted and sin.
No. No. When you say Eve, you're talking about before or after they committed an insurrection against God?
Yeah, as she was created, prior to the eating of the fruit.
An insurrection against God. I love that you put it that way.
Well, we don't have that. We don't have that nature. We inherit our sin nature when we're born.
Well,
the Bible's clear.
No, we only have a human nature, and nowhere does the Bible indicate that our committing like any action would have the power to change the.
Okay, good. Then you just destroyed. It says all who are in Adam, and where Paul talks about the two Adams, the first Adam and the second.
Yeah.
Good. Then we all took part in Adam and Eve's sin federally.
Well, I don't think that's
because then why? Well, that's exactly what Paul's talking about.
No, I think he's talking about the consequences that Adam.
No, dude, listen.
Dude, listen. Adam and Eve woke up and said, "Fuck you, God." My awesome wife. John says God wanted a love triangle. Yeah. Three-way, bro.
No, Paul makes it very clear. You're either in Adam or you're in Christ. That's all there is to it. And being in Adam is that you inherit a sinful inclination, a sin, and you're under the wrath of God until you're in Christ, in the second Adam.
The problem is the Bible lacks that verbiage you just described.
I'm pretty much quoting Romans.
If you're talking about Romans,
The other fucked up thing is, I'm pretty sure, like, Adam and Eve only had sons, right? So then, like, it never talks, like, so where do the other ones, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
5, it doesn't say anything
Yeah,
about
it talks about there's the first Adam and there's the second Adam.
Right, but it doesn't import to federal headship all these ideas you just
Oh, so there's not a federal headship in Christ?
No, I'm saying
you're delusional.
The federal headship that Paul is speaking of does not entail all that you were attributing to it. I don't
know. No, it's all who are.
Oh, if you're in Adam, you're gay. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Yeah, touche. Brojo Sandy says, Irenic didn't like having his rules applied to him, nor did he like being called on such crap, as he should be able to drive as fast as he wants anywhere. Yeah. Where do the rules come from, man?
In Christ will be saved. Okay.
I understand. Yeah.
Right.
But,
and that's right. So if you're not in Christ, then you're in Adam.
No, right. But you were saying to be in Adam entailed these certain things that I'm saying I'd like to see the text.
When you're in, read Romans.
Speaking of which, I was just reading, there's like a law, I think in one of North Carolina or South Carolina, one of the Carolinas, I believe, where they're saying now it's like, it's completely legal to drive with an expired license. Somebody has to renew their license for some reason, which I think is crazy because they're making all the rest of us get like real IDs or some shit.
Dude.
John Lovell says the Christian Trinity is just a sad triangle. And Lorena says, I do think Irenic has a more thoughtful position here, whilst DD just accepts whatever the Bible says. Yeah, well, that's Darth's job, right? I guess his job on the internet. He's a professional apologist in real life. Only he's not. Brojo says Irenic can be thoughtful, but as with any other Christian held to the fire, they do a dance. Indeed.
Go ahead. I mean, where?
Read it. No, read it. Have you not read Romans?
I'm very familiar with it.
It's plain as the nose on your face.
Well, it's not plain to me, so.
Well, go back and read Romans.
Well, I don't need to reread it because I have I think a better.
Maybe you might want to go to the eye doctor and get a new prescription.
I think I have a better understanding that makes more sense.
Make more sense. What would be the standard for it to make sense too? When you say something doesn't make sense, you're saying that a certain state of affairs doesn't cohere or conform to a standard. Well, the standard is the Scripture.
Well, I would say the standard is the God and His love. You know,
the standard is the Word of God, sir. And the bottom line in Romans, it makes very clear: you're either in Adam or you're in Christ.
And I agree.
You are either a covenant breaker or a covenant keeper, and you're only a covenant keeper by virtue of being in Christ, the federal head.
All I'm saying is to be in Adam does not necessarily entail.
I'm pretty sure I've heard Darth take up exactly Irenic's position though in other conversations. Like if he's talking to an atheist, he'll be like, "No, but the standard for logic is God, right?" But now he's saying it's the Scripture. I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure, but if that's really a contradiction, could say that both are true, but the point here is that he's arguing against Irenic, which I don't know if that makes sense.
Having a sinful nature or anything of the sort.
It most certainly does. How about when David said, "I was brought forth in sin"? He
was using that. He was mitigating. He was using that as a mitigating circumstance.
Listen to me. Adam and Eve simply procreated what they were.
I agree.
But you see, to view Adam and Eve as merely biological agents is to miss the mark, because we're more than simply biological entities. And Adam and Eve procreated what they were, both biologically and spiritually.
Okay, then let me ask you, why did Eve sin? What caused her to sin? What in her nature? What about her nature allowed her to sin? Address that, please.
That's the wrong question to ask. The answer to the question is no. Nothing caused her. Now, her choosing, Adam and Eve choosing to rebel, was in the sovereign plan of God. But the point is, she and Adam were responsible. what caused Satan to rebel? Simply, they made a choice to do.
I'm not sure Satan rebelled, but was created as he is. That's another
All
question.
right, okay, listen, I'm done talking. You're nuts. Okay, you're Looney Tunes.
Well, my whole belief is based on the scripture, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I've got sad news for you. You're Looney Tunes. Okay, Satan was not. Satan was not created with a as a covenant breaker.
Okay, I'll pause it in case you want to talk it off. That's about halfway through.
No, that was hilarious. Like, I like how you just moved past with that one. Like, yeah, all right, bro. Like, but I was gonna say earlier, like the way Tom put this video together was pretty genius. I like the way
It does. I mean, it does happen to highlight like that Matrix movie, especially later on when I get muted and he goes to where Neo has his mouth is like gone and it's like his lips are closed. And he's in a straitjacket in the cell. Do you remember that part?
Right.
And he's trying to open his mouth and it's like it won't open. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, I'll stop sharing it.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I'll check out the rest.
Yeah, Darth Dawkins, Irenic Pelagian, it'll come up.
Yeah, he doesn't. I've noticed that with him. I mean, unless you catch him in a good mood in one of his own, Discord chats or whatever, like he will not budge for anybody for that. Like answer one of my questions. It's like he will turn it around every time.
And I don't know, you might have noticed I was walking on eggshells and I wasn't bending over or anything. I was just, I was trying to do whatever I could to keep you not to.
I think the last time I interacted with Darth, because I tried to get in there a couple times, and then I ended up trolling him on Godless Girl's channel. It was through Discord, but she was live streaming it, and I was hammered, and just got in there and started mocking him.
Not to provoke him, because I wanted to get to.
Yeah, it seemed like you came in trying to find that point of agreement with him, and he just turned to the first thing he could try to hammer you on. Like the wrong pivot, I guess that is why he has the status that he does, though, because there's no conversation with Darth that doesn't turn into a dumpster fire. It doesn't matter who he's talking to, and unless they just agree with everything he says.
I mean, he's got his I don't know how many of the sycophants from a few years ago are still around, but yeah, I mean he has a choir around. He can never be around that doesn't have a choir of some, at least a small one, somebody to guard him. He's got to have a moderator that will boot the people that he needs booted. That kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah. I've seen him leave a few channels and say, "I'm not your friend anymore. I'm not coming back here because."
Yeah, that was quite a while ago.
They wouldn't do as well. Like funny for a man of God, trying to play God on the internet.
Just I don't know. I'm really the last person that really wants to try to get inside someone else's head, and I just kind of go by whatever they say or whatever, or that's evident. But yeah, the fuck. I mean, everybody can see it. It's like if the guy has a good motivation behind him, he's got to be the fucking dumbest person in the world about being able to recognize what tactic to take with people, sharing the love of God.
Yeah, I have this theory that he's probably very conscious of what he's doing, and like maybe this is like a form of therapy for him, so he doesn't go abusing his wife and kids or something, He's like, oh, I could just go, verbally bash strangers on the internet. Maybe it makes him a nicer person in real life.
Okay, well, people don't realize this about me.
I think the prevailing theory is that somebody heard him early on, and so forevermore he kind of uses that as like ammunition to go around doing what he does
sometimes. But yeah, when it comes to when I like in Brojo's hangouts or whatever, I'm among friends and stuff in there, but if it comes to debates about like when I come to debating an atheist, and it really is just an online.
John Paul says Jesus hurt his feelings. Yeah,
thing with me when I'm online.
I think I could see a song coming in. Jesus hurt
I take a
his
different
feelings.
tack. I don't play under the same rules that I would if I was to meet you on the street. If you meet me on the street, I'm Mr. Loving Christian man. You wouldn't, unless you provoke me, you would never hear me yelling or anything like that. But
so he only yells when provoked, he says. Here.
Okay. I figure this is the public space, and I find it my duty to mock or criticize or any kind of worldview that attacks mine. I feel free to denigrate it however I want to, or whatever, in the public space. So, and I feel, I think it's just fair game. It's nothing.
See, I agree with that to like some extent, but yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't like the way that Irenic does it.
You know,
I don't know. It's just I just don't like it. I yell also when I get pissed off. Yeah, I mean sometimes yelling is, but Irenic does it like a lot. Like he's on another level.
I don't think it's anything unchristian about it. It's just taking the fight to the enemy, you know, in the way they like to fight, you know. And so I can still, you know, and I just, you know, my flag that I fly is just for the truth, you know. So fuck it up, everything else, you know. Anyways, I don't know if that's, I don't know if God will justify that or not, but the relationship I have with God, I know that
Flying the flag of the truth.
when I am out of line with Him, I know about it. I can sense it. I know it, and I have perfect peace with, you know, when I'm in these debates online and stuff. So, I mean, it's passionate. I mean, I'm not peaceful right at the time because I'm very passionate, but and yeah, I can get loud, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it goes back to that, you know, if God can see the intentions of your heart, He's going to judge you by that, right? Not whatever came
That's
out
what I count
to be
on.
the intention. Yeah.
That's what I count on. Yeah, that's for sure. And then, you know, if you just worry about your own heart and your own intentions and let God worry about the other person's, that'll help you out too. Yeah, that's a good life lesson. Learn that early. And then, you know, just don't hang around people that are assholes, you know, and life will get a lot easier after that.
Hey, that might be the
It
lesson
might be a little lonelier, but
we
it's a
learned
lot
here.
easier.
Yeah, there's, you know, and it's like on the internet is a double-edged sword because, you know, I tried to, you know, come out being, you know, Mr. Nice Guy, you know, just like I said, doing the epistemology thing if I was going to do that. And like over time, that is, you know, like I had built up resentment. Obviously, like I said, I went off and just did the response video on Darth instead of actually responding to Darth when I had the chance to, right? And so, like, more recently, I felt like,
Well, you
know,
didn't really have a
people
chance
were-
to. I mean,
Yeah,
Darth
yeah,
never
in that
gives anybody
situation.
Darth never gives anyone a chance to. Or what are you kidding?
I actually, in that conversation, I did mute Darth a couple of times because I was like, you know, no, this is, you know, but I pretty much caved, you know. At a point when I probably should have just kicked him. I really wanted to try to get the time in, and I did, but at the end of the day, I felt like it was, you know, it was just something that I wasn't prepared to deal with, you know, adversarially. So I just kind of let him run a script and got in my one question at the end, which is why I was really unhappy about it. But yeah, his dude. I did hit the mute on him a couple of times. I did have that power being my stream, but Bro just says, still don't know Jesus' favorite color or song, so much for personal relationship. And Awesome Life says, according to Jesus, God judges the heart. According to the God of the Old Testament, God will judge you for your fathers and great-grandfathers' fuck-ups. Yeah. Sins of the father. Jesus is just guarding his feelings, so do not be angry with him, John Lovell says. And Eloina says, ah yes, the famous flag of truth.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. But you can go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Really, I was just like, don't like. You were kind of beating yourself up, like because when you know you should have responded when you had a chance. But you don't really have a chance to though. So sometimes you're stuck with a video response. That's all. I'm not hearing you now.
Sorry, yeah, I had to.
No, I hear you.
I had to step away for a moment. Yeah. So more recently, I felt like I was like being manipulated by somebody. You know, it's like that whole, you know, nice to your face, but you get the impression that there's something else going on. You know, and so I just had to be very clear. Like, I'm not gonna play that game anymore. Like I you know, if I feel you're trying to manipulate me, I'm just gonna call it out. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. That kind of in my my second marriage. This woman. Oh, I could get back to this because weren't we were talking about the relation. I think I was talking a little bit about my relationships, but anyways, what I was going to look for, looking back on my two marriages, one of the common denominators of the two women was the fact that they both came out of broken homes. Like my first wife, her dad was a military guy. He was a merchant marine, even like a ship's captain kind of.
No, so remember, like at this point, when we're having this, I'm not even sure that Irenic like remembers me like from previous conversations, like I wasn't sure. He knew, like, we established that we had Wild Heart in common or whatever. But I don't know if he actually like remembers the conversation that took place or whatever. So I think at one point I had like whatever tried to address it in a stream, and he was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And then later on, though, I remember him like actively ignoring me in another room, and yeah. So that was like all in between. John Lovell said the last time Jesus opened up, that killed him. Oh, they killed him. Yeah. And Brojo says, ironic how the enlightened are blind to how their religion was built to control the masses and make them docile and submissive. Yeah. Romans 13. Know your Bible.
And later on, they discovered he had a wife and a family over in Singapore, I think it was, or somewhere over there.
Wow.
On the other side of the world that, was just a, secret to them, of course. But anyways, so they got divorced or whatever, and that was years before I met my wife. But so because she grew up many years without the dad in the house, or he would just come by and once in a while and visit, that kind of thing. But yeah, once I met my wife and we were going out, and I just was always over at their house and this and that, and I was young. I was just 24. I think she was 17 when I met her, but she was like 18 then or something. And but all of a sudden her dad showed up, and he was being all Mr. Charming and everything, and her mom got all sucked in by him, and it's like this was like a couple months, and then I don't know, I forget exactly the details, but I know what it was. Okay, this is okay. So I was a little ahead of myself with the family on the other side, because up to this point and what happened was my wife happened to go, like, found her dad's wallet, and just like a daughter might do, grab his wallet and start going through it, right? And she found these pictures of the family, and then she showed those to his mother, and she had, oh my God, she had an absolute fucking nervous. I should have noticed this right then. Like, I should have noticed this and went, I wonder how.
John Lovell said Jesus married a hot Italian chick. No, he married my sister.
How far that falls from the
That's
tree.
great.
But anyway, she had this like some kind of psychotic fucking breakdown at that time. And like there was a few days she was fucking not herself, dude. And especially the day she found out, she was out of her she was cuckoo. I mean, it was sad. Believe me, it was a terrible thing, to see, that happen to a person. Wow.
Yeah,
anyway,
it would be devastating.
So anyway, the point is, so I was gonna say, in my, like, if I could happen upon a woman today, I do want to pay attention. I ask women, like, if I get a chance, in some way to find out, are their mom and dad still alive, or whatever, are they together, this and that. Because I wonder if I'll have better luck with a woman who at least was raised in a intact home like I was, and maybe it's because I was raised the way I was that I have such strong views myself about marriage, and like not taking it lightly is all. Like I wish people would just take it seriously and not make a promise they don't plan on keeping. That's my big issue.
Yeah.
On the other hand, look, that I felt much more that way when I had kids, or I do feel much. If there's if you're a young, like the natural course of life, you meet you're both young, you meet. You should stay together, especially if you start having kids. You should stay together and make it work. And the fact is, if there was no divorce, and when there was no divorce allowed, there's been societies like that. Yeah, shit happens. People fool around, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? It was a lot better on all the kids overall, as much as people complain about who wants to raise their kids in a house where the mom and dad hate each other. That's not good for them. Yeah, whatever. Be adults and don't do that in front of the kids. I mean,
I think maybe, like a better idea, like instead of having them just get married and cohabitate, like the new form of marriage would be like becoming next door neighbors and be like, okay, you can have sleepovers at each other's house if you want to, but you're gonna like you're both gonna have, you know what I mean? Because just in case, we still want the kids to be able to go next door, they can see mommy, go next door, they can see daddy. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that would be ideal.
My awesome wife said, dude, so he wants the wife chained to his hip. Nice. Yeah. Essentially, She's not allowed to leave. She must stay in the house and raise the children, be obedient. John Lovell says, Jesus said that if a woman remarries, then she is a whore. Not that there is anything wrong with that. Yeah, well. I'm not sure where that would be. Yeah.
I mean, if there's going to be a split, it'd be nice if, I don't know. Yeah. I wouldn't, myself, I wouldn't be opposed to, states having a law that if you divorce and you have children in the home, you have to stay in the home with the children and make whatever sleeping arrangements you have to. And it doesn't mean we're forcing you to be a husband and wife, but we are forcing you to live under the same house with the kids you birthed. We
Right.
we as the state say that's your responsibility, and it's going to be a lot better for the kids.
This is how you end up with a situation where the couple is, constantly fighting all the time. And people just do this because they don't have the good sense to just do the divorce sooner. And the kids have to be witness to all of that. Plus, maybe physical abuse. Or worst case, one of the spouses, unalives the other one, which happens, more than it should, whatever the rate is, it's like, okay, if we have that happening, there's really a problem. They won't just go and get fucking divorced, right? But, I mean, yeah, let's just make them stay in the same house. That's just, we can just do that. Oh, so we got that debate going on.
We want less crime and less, hoodlums walking around. So anyway, I would support legislation like that. I think. I mean, that would never happen, obviously. But
No.
I think it would be better for the kids. And sometimes if you get married, and if that's the cost of divorce, well, that sucks. Think about that before you say I do, bitch.
Well, it's hard for young people, I mean, that's kind of I almost feel like maybe
That's
if they raise
maybe
You just blame the woman, right? Because it must be the
30 years
woman's
old
fault.
instead of 21.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can't get married till you're 30 years old. That would probably be a good law too. Or a good
Or
practice,
25 maybe. 25 is a good middle ground. 21 you can start drinking, making bad
The problem
decisions.
is-
By 25, hopefully you get it together.
The problem is the kids start popping out. I mean, at least in my day, it was like at 16 and 17 and 18. So
Yep.
and everybody kind of realized it'd be good if this kid is raised by a couple. So a lot of people would be pushed to get married early on, anyways. But yeah.
Now, I don't think that's realistic. I just, I'm playing devil's advocate with him here, but I think it is logical. Like, if we, push the, because your brain's not really fully developed or whatever, so we could try to, continue. I mean, people are still going to make bad decisions anyway. But to try to deter them from doing that, at that stage in life, because a lot of traditional families or whatever still encourage it. They're like, you move out of the house, like either you go to school or you get married or whatever. Like that's what they push on them. Usually, like some kind of a combination of the two. Like you can do both. And you start having kids or whatever. And but I guess that's like a perfect, like ideal American person. That should be their experience. According to them, whoever they are. My awesome life says, I love it when men blame me. It makes sex 10 times better.
Or they get
Well,
pushed
today,
off on the grandparents, which I think is really messed up. That even though some grandparents like it because they're empty nesters. If you think about it, if a kid's underage, then the grandbaby gets pushed off on the grandparents. But even if the kid, an 18-year-old who can't take care of them, who's most likely to end up, with the kid, it's got to be the grandparent.
Well, thankfully, anybody that is a grandparent is probably old enough to have been born or, was raised in America at a time when, people really felt more family duty to each other and they happily take on the responsibility, even though, I mean, as long as, once they see that they're the one that's in that position, it's like they know that's their they got to do it. That's how could I not? And so they do it, and they love
my
it.
objection
and they love
though
it,
is my objection though
fair.
is that
It's not
those
fair
are the
to them.
same people they raised the child who ended up having the irresponsible pregnancy to begin with. You know what I mean? So obviously,
Well, a lot of those
I
people,
mean,
a lot of those people, I heard them. I was like, who was it? Some famous fucking pundit of some kind or whatever. She's like, you raised them. You know, you can't blame them for the fuck ups they are, because you like, as if because they, you know, when your kids fuck up, or the generation of your kids,
Yes, the classic blame the parents argument.
you know, it's your fault because you raised them. I don't know. There's some truth to that. I mean, you know, kids are a product of their parents, but to some extent. But you know, at a certain age, you got to start accepting your own responsibility, don't you?
well,
As a
that's the
generation or
idea.
something.
But what age is that? 25, 35, 50?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking A.
In a perfect world.
Like, there's a certain point.
Maybe never. Maybe never.
You got to stop blaming your parents for everything. You know.
I've gotten addicted to watching these lulz cows, and one of them is this girl, Grace Thorpe, and her dad live in a trailer together, and
Wait, you broke up when you first
Thorpe TV. But this girl,
you broke up. Hold on, you broke up when you first entered. What kind of is it? Thorpe TV? Is that what you said? You've been watching it, or what was the first word
it's
you
called
used to
Thorpe
describe
TV.
it? Okay, yeah, I'm not familiar. Yeah.
Oh, I called her a lulz cow. I don't know if I don't even know what
okay.
you'd call their content, but I consider her like a lulz cow because people are actively trolling her, and she engages her trolls like all the time. You know, because she's a 21-year-old young woman living with her father, just no plans for the future. No, you know what I mean? Like it's very obvious. Like she cannot take care of herself and is making no attempts to. You know, and it's just this crazy situation. But I see this more and more often. Like people in their 20s, they've never been out of the house. They're still living with their parents. They have no investment in the future. They have no goals. Like, and they just sit on the internet all day. And
My mic was remixing me in real time. Kiss me. That's funny.
Is this one girl's parents happy with her situation? I mean, they're happy to.
so
let her
the
live
parents divorced. The parents divorced, I guess, like a big public spectacle. So the mom has the other siblings, but this girl went with the father, and so dad does debates, and the daughter reviews them, and they're both just unhinged. They just do crazy shit all the time. But you know, they're totally enabling each other. So the dad right now is in prison for a domestic assault against the daughter, and she's defending him and trying to get him out, and she's trying to raise money for his legal fund.
Is it a state where like she didn't have to press charges for the state to put him in jail?
Yeah, I think they're in Rhode Island. Yeah.
We did review the both the legal battle that Grace covered in real time as it was happening. Covered that here on the channel, and the RV raid when they caught Ben in the RV when he was out on like probation or whatever, and again violated the no contact order. So both of those are available in the past streams.
That was exactly what it was.
Interesting. Wow, crazy.
But what to me is a 21-year-old person who's, you know, has no idea how to, you know, just manage their own lives. You know what I mean? Like that, because I was, you know, I took off when I was young.
You think you'll be okay?
Back, you know, but like I was at a point, you know, at like 15.
I believe in you, John.
16, where I would have rather lived on the streets, and I tried to get emancipated, but I had dropped out of school. In California, you can't get emancipated unless you get a high school equivalency and stuff like that. So I just opted to run away. You know, I can't understand that mentality of a lot of young people now who just want to stay at home as long as they can and milk it, and they're not going to school, they're not doing anything. You know.
Yeah, no,
Well, the parents also they don't really you know, they're not trying to kick the kids out, you know, as often. Like I don't know who these people are who can continue to support adult children, but ain't my family.
I don't know about you, but yeah, in my generation, it was the rare. You know, you didn't see that.
Like my parents have helped me out over the years. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, as far as that went, like I usually find my own place to stay most of the
guys
time.
you do today, staying at home, living in their basements. You know, it's a trope or whatever, but it's fucking. There's a lot of truth to that fucking shit, man.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's weird.
And I just don't know what to say to people who aren't motivated for that. You know, it's like if you're not naturally motivated to go and, you know, establish your own nest and get away from your parents. I mean, you're not to say that, you know, young people should hate their parents, but there's something I think, you know, psychologically wrong with people who are not motivated to leave the house by a certain age. You know.
Look, yeah, there's
I just
something
know
about. I have this natural. I don't know if my parents drilled it into me or us kids or not, but yeah, there's something about. There's like a shame attached to the fact that if I was ever not able to take care of myself or especially my family, You know, I mean, like, and that requires that requires never sitting down. You got to have a job. Yeah. Whatever. I don't know. You got to. I don't know, man. The America I grew up in was a great country, man. A lot of opportunities. You know, it was. I'm so glad I got an opportunity to grow up in such a place. I hope the freedoms come back, man.
I recently read a story of a woman. I think it was after the Depression, if I remember correctly, and she was having problems in her marriage or whatever. Tried working, it wasn't working out, and she went out and she just ended up hoboing across the country for like 30 years.
Wow.
I wish I could remember the name right now, but yeah, I just thought that was amazing. I was like, oh, and then she wrote about it. You know, like, oh yeah, just went
Did
out.
she end up settling down then somewhere?
Yeah, I think she just kind of lived independently after that, but she never like went remarried or anything like that. Like she.
Yeah, I pictured she, you know, on her
Okay.
along the trail, she met this old retiree. They fell in love, and she moved into his place up in Oregon, up in the hills or something. And he built her a nice studio where she wrote her book.
John Bell says you have to have rich parents. Yeah. I mean, even I guess middle class, you make it work, especially people who can do like part-time jobs. You know, you can just do some online gig, which is fine for what it is. It's just like, but they get the benefit of not having to go get their own place, right? And then maybe they're doing like Uber or DoorDash or something, but they're probably still using the parents' car. I don't know. There's just all these situations. Yeah, I mean, people got to get by however they get by. I'm just saying that it's like psychologically, it makes sense that like at a certain age you want to be like independent and not be subject to your parents, such a way that like, because it's weird, like like if you're trying to bring somebody home and sleep with them or whatever. I mean, maybe like maybe some of these people are like asexual or something. I don't know, but regardless, yeah, it never made sense to me. John Lovell says Jesus won't even loan me $5. I mean, I know where you can get a loan, but you'll have to pay interest. My awesome life says that's the America you grew up in. John Lovell says you need money. And my awesome life says I inherited a sleeping bag. Yeah. My mom bought me a sleeping bag once. Actually, I think it was like donated and she just gave it to me. But yeah, I had that sleeping bag for a while. Like maybe a couple of years.
See if I can find it really fast here.
Where do you how old are you? 30 something?
I'm 35.
Yeah, so are you working? A regular job, I mean? Or?
Yeah, I work more than full time. I have two jobs.
I feel like we already no, that's the next conversation. Okay, my bad.
Security guard full time, and then I do deliveries part time.
Okay, so are you dating anyone right now?
No. I've been single since 2016. Yeah, so right now
okay, so all right, so you've been single for a while. Yeah. All right, so if you was to figure you wanted to date somebody, like, are you like in your daily routine from work? Are you in contact with people that or are you do you have opportunity to meet women, I guess, that are of your age? What you're looking for?
It's kind of awkward being a guard. Like it's like being a cop. Like I don't know, you don't want to be in that position where you end up getting caught in the wrong situation, and then they, oh look at this. You know what I mean? Like
no, that's
badges,
if you're like
held to a different standard.
Yeah, say you're a security guard at an office building. That's not like I wouldn't be fraternizing with any of the office ladies or anything. Like, but I might fraternize with some of the other security guards if there was women, and like that would be the context. If I'm a guard, I'm thinking, I don't know, I might run into another woman security guard or something that for some reason ain't a butch dyke that likes, I don't know, thinks she's a cop or something.
Well, I've definitely considered it. I've met some good looking ones out there. We don't have frequent enough contact to really make that happen. But I mean, it's I've considered it.
Okay,
We'll just take a moment to pause for that. Antiquated choice of terminology from Grandpa Irenic.
I'm just saying, I'm trying to get a feel for what your work environment might be like, because it
Uncle Irenic.
doesn't sound like you really have much in the work partners to be looking after, because it's mostly guys.
Antiquated, offensive. Does he mean hit on? Yes. Yeah. So I mean, essentially, like the question, and it's cringe in itself. He's like, "Do you have a chance to pick up chicks at work?" And I'm like, "Not really." I don't know.
In that field, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, in the Bay Area, we're a bit more diverse, so we've got some female guards out here, but in our outfit, most of us work independently, so it's pretty rare that we have a lot of interaction outside of like incident that requires us to really be focused on the job, to be able to fraternize like that.
Okay, right. I guess you.
But I mean, I could see that being a possibility. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
but
and I mean, in that case, what are they gonna do? They're just gonna tell you don't do that again, right? Like, maybe make you watch a video or something.
So where would okay, so if it's not it's not like, where would you like? People aren't going out to bars to meet.
So I actually met
go ahead.
No, I did. I met a nice girl in my recovery meeting this morning, so I'm hopeful for that. But we've been going to this meeting together for like 3 months, and finally had the introduction. So yeah, it's a slow process for me. I'm a bit of a shy guy, in person.
Haven't we already talked about this earlier? About people.
I don't know. Did I mention it? I've been gloating today. I'm kind of sailing on that one.
No. I was talking about my son, and the woman he hooked up with was a former.
I did mention it earlier briefly, but I made a joke in passing.
They were addicts together when they met in recovery.
Yeah. Yeah, people generally frown upon that, but I've heard some really good stories come out of that as well. Usually people tell you to wait a bit longer,
I think there's something especially
This is before my awesome life. This was prior.
Depending on the levels of depravity that you descended into in your journey, because there's some fucking levels of depravity to it, hopefully you never descended to, but especially if you think of what can happen to some of the women in these things, so there's something to a person who can commiserate and understand that and look past it, like I'm saying, someone like my son who can look past what his girl's been through,
Nothing happened,
or what she went through, and be there for, not hold it against her at all, or just forget about it, but where somebody who hasn't been through like what you probably, to some extent you've been through, and my son was through, really be hard to understand. Somebody hasn't almost lived that life, might really have a hard time dealing with some of the issues that come with having gone through a life like this woman I'm thinking of has. Which it sounds like you in your own life, you recognize, there's things that are difficult to process through or to eradicate, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think I'm pretty well equipped, and part of it is compensating for, being in a situation, 10 years ago that, again, I can like now recognize my own shortcomings. And kind of a similar thing, being with an older woman, trying to accept that, she had done things, before I was even born, that I had to try to cope with. And I wasn't prepared for it at the time, but, now I've got a lot more wisdom behind me, so it's like,
definitely.
Yeah, I tend to go for older women. Lately, I'm gravitating more towards younger women, though, which I don't know. At my age, maybe it's just a guy getting old thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I like younger women. At least, I mean, I don't mind like.
Well, that paradigm shifted.
I don't mind a woman close to my age at all, but there's very few women that are above or like say close to 60 either way, that actually have maintained their good looks. Maybe a thin, petite figure. Because that's a key to maintain some natural good looks by
so painfully awkward, isn't it though? I mean,
not putting on weight, if you're a woman, probably if you're a man too, but I don't know, men seem to get a lot of, like, I don't know, it ain't about so much with looks for women, or at least women's view of how what makes a man attractive must be way all over the place, as far as I can tell from looking at decent looking women with some of the guys you see them with. It's like, damn.
Yeah, they're looking at really strange things that I don't, quite identify with, and it's been like, I've always said that I don't have a type. I mean, I'm just attracted to whatever I find beautiful, and it could be, 6 foot Amazonian woman. It could be,
do you have
tiny petite girl.
Do you have turnoffs? You don't like? I don't like large boobs.
Yeah, I mean, I've
like
got
like big large jugs.
I mean, I could do large boobs to an extent. Yeah, I mean, I can see there's definitely a limit. There's too big. I mean, obesity for me in general is an
Yeah.
issue, and I try not to discriminate. I've been with some larger women, but there's definitely a line there. I'm not into really big women, and I'm not really into necessarily very small women either. Like if I look at them and I think anorexia, that's a turnoff. You know what I mean?
Oh, definitely.
Um,
Yeah.
So on the extremes, I'm looking at basic like measures of health and potential risk factors in the future, I guess. But
So I had an anorexic chick. This is like totally aside, but this is like recent. It's just probably something I wanted. This anorexic chick on some social media who hit me up, and I thought she was like doing like whatever she's into, like fitness or whatever. And I thought she was like trying to gain weight or something, and so she does this like like healthy eating content and whatnot. And then, but you could tell she's like obviously anorexic. She talks about it a little bit. And then she hits me up one day on Messenger. I open up the Messenger and it's like, hey, how's it going? Whatever. And I responded and she goes, do you buy content, or are you into buying content or something like that? I was like, what? Like OnlyFans or something like that. And I was like, no, I don't, but good luck, And I was like, okay, so there's like, it's probably like an anorexia fetish. I was like, no, you really need to gain some weight. Like, I wouldn't even be into that, like, personally, if I did that, which I don't partake. John Lovell says, why is the girl fucking that ugly guy that he would never fuck? That is a sad thing.
as far as blonde or brunette or whatever, these types of things.
That's kind of evolutionary. They and I agree. Like somehow I want them to look healthy. Like they have to have a healthy look to them. As fit as I want them to look. Like I don't want them to look like anorexic. And I'd much rather have somebody that's got a little cushion, but it's not anywhere getting.
That's true. I mean, everybody has to have money, but I just don't know. That's not for me. I wouldn't, like, just on a personal level, I wouldn't want to encourage people to do that, and I don't think it's healthy for me to partake in it. So I don't know. It's not really for me to decide. I'd have to come up with a better argument, but I've just got the that gut feeling that it's not the correct way of going about things. Yeah,
close to the heavy set side at all. You know what I mean? I don't. And I'm a face
It's
guy,
difficult for me because I always
If they
think
don't
like
have a
I'm a prime candidate, right? Like I'm mid-30s, white.
Oh, anorexia. Yeah, no. Yeah, I was talking about OnlyFans, but yeah, no, anorexia is a thought process. Yeah, no, I understand. It's like a clinical disorder.
Dude with a very average build, but unfortunately, like that makes me like just run of the mill. And I'm like, biologically, I'm a perfect candidate. I've got the blonde hair, blue eye genes, and all that good shit. My son is half Mexican and has the most gorgeous blue eyes and dark hair. Just got all the best features, right? Like, but women don't actually look at that stuff. They'll look at like this one feature, and I think it seems to have to do with like more like their experience with men in the past than anything else.
What feature?
Like it'd always be like, you remind me of this, this one guy I dated, or my creepy uncle, or some shit like that.
Oh, you mean the women will focus on one particular issue, not the same issue among all women? Okay, so I see what you're saying. Yeah, so like they'll pick out something that reminds them of. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, gotcha. But I don't know. It seems to me that people, I don't know, women, or if you're dating or something, or trying to, I don't know, if you get that kind of attitude and they're trying to, I don't know if they're pointing out how you remind them of of this bad habit from their boyfriend. I don't know. That's a bad sign, isn't it?
No, I think it's more like physical features. Like I said, it's like the shape of the face or something like that. Like it'll be something really
that
like that seems
forms
vague.
an attraction point.
Or turn off. It could go either way.
I guess it could go either way. Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, like okay, yeah. I'm trying to think of an example. I mean, it could be something like a beauty mark. Not everybody, whatever. Like a mole in the.
I already gave him like multiple examples.
In the wrong place on the face. I don't know.
Yeah, like the shape of your jaw, like something like really, like looks at the shape of the jaw. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't immediately register for me. I have to like really focus on something like that. I'm like, okay, is the face look good as a?
John Little says, women like a nice guy, but women think a hard on is hot. Tell us more. What women want, yes.
Oh, they're like, no, your jaw's too long or something. I don't know.
Oh my
Something weird.
god! On the TV screen in my mind, I'm picturing.
But I'm talking about things that I've actually heard women say. That's what I'm speaking from my experience and what when I've heard women speaking on this type.
The Jerry Seinfeld or the Seinfeld episode where remember the one with the woman has man hands and they're out eating and they're eating lobster. Those giant hands breaking the lobster. That show was so funny with.
And no, not in the prawn videos. We'll jump on a man like a dog on a bone. If he has money, maybe. I don't know.
Like that. Because
it depends. It depends on the person. Like that's what I'm saying. Like certain things could be an automatic turn on or an automatic turn on. But I think it's like the way they judge things. Is what I'm saying is based on like they remember certain characteristics like that their dad had, and depending on their relationship with their dad, that might be a good or a bad thing, and then maybe you remind them of that in a good or a bad way, and that's like the way. Like I don't think most men tend to do that. Like it's more based on like behavior. Well, woman according to Abe. Yeah, I mean, I've studied the field extensively.
Exactly what we're talking about.
I'm a womanologist. Yeah.
Little quirks or something. Man hands.
I remember somebody telling me once that I should be a hand model. What are you talking about? I've got like veiny hands. Okay.
True story. Yeah. Women's nipples get hard when they see a guy. Sometimes. Maybe they're just cold, John.
But they're like that was an exaggeration on that show. But you definitely run into women with man's hands, and it's kind of like it's sort of like that makes her kind of plain. I don't know. I don't know. In my view, it's a detraction to beauty. To have man hands if you're a woman.
Yeah, or like I could stand.
It's very misleading too because when you think about it, like for the woman, if she gets cold, like her nips get hard. But with a man, if he gets cold, like his junk shrinks up. It's like makes no sense.
Being taller than me, but if her feet are bigger than mine, I think that's weird. I don't know why.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
It's not necessarily a deal breaker. It's just kind of weird to me.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't know. My latest ex-wife, I was a good 4 inches taller than her, but if we were sitting butt to butt against a wall, our legs were the same length, so it was funny. Because and her head would be way down. Yeah, I know it's funny.
Yeah, I think traditionally most of the women I've dated have been my height or shorter. I don't think I've actually dated a taller one.
I mean, I'm short. I'm 5'8" only. So anyways.
Yeah, I'm 5'9", so we're almost the same. Yeah, which is it's average, and
sure.
It's always like people have this idea of like the sick.
Some funny shit. Women will use you and then lose you. Yep, that's sometimes true as well. The wind is blowing through the bedroom. Thought hurricane season was over.
Foot man who's with the it's like okay that's cool, but
I never feel like I'm the shortest guy out there hardly ever unless I'm going to a basketball stadium or something.
Yeah,
girls are mean. If you mean young women and females are mean, yeah, that tends to be my experience. Hey, it's Spooky Better. I'm here for the dating tips. Oh no, you've come to the wrong place, my friend.
You've had shorter men all day.
Good to see, Spooky.
But I played basketball and I was a good guard, so
And then you'll see that. Oh really? Did you play in high school?
Just in school, yeah, junior high and elementary school and junior high, and then I always played sports outside of school. Whatever, pickup games and stuff. I'm pretty good athlete, very good athlete.
Oh, gotcha.
I didn't compete in school for various reasons, but
I asked my younger brother he's playing college ball now out here in California. He's doing pretty well for himself, so we'll see. He might make it pro. He's still got time.
Cool.
Yeah, I never got big into sports. I got into music instead. I kind of rebelled against sports. I was into soccer and hockey, which are not the most popular out here when I was younger, but I didn't get into competition very much. So, but I'm pretty athletic. I mean, I like to play for fun. I just didn't want to do it as a profession or whatever. But
Mhm.
I respect people who do, and it was something I got back into when I was in rehab.
Another right wing video from Sam Harris. Oh no. John Lovell says, "Don't ever fight a girl; she will beat your ass." Especially because you can't fight back, man.
Was just shooting hoops,
Fighting back against a girl is frowned upon.
hoop out there. It's like things like
Yeah.
that you kind of get back to as you get older. It kind of makes you feel young again, but get that skill back.
Yeah, as I recall, yeah, like the years I was really involved in sports was in like fourth, fifth, sixth grade, seventh, eighth, and around eighth and ninth grade is when, like you said, I kind of got sidetracked into hanging out with buddies and shooting pool and playing ping pong and listening to records, and like hair was being, we were growing our hair long, all that stuff. It's funny.
I was in the I guess the next generation down, so we had like Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, we didn't have games. Yeah.
There was not much going out. We did a lot of video gaming, and then but we formed a band in middle school, and so we spent most of high school trying to cram in homework and then play as much as we could, and
That's
so that was
fun.
like the
Yeah,
majority
cool.
of our time. Yeah.
And smoke a shit ton of weed.
Garage
Yeah.
band.
Yeah. We didn't have the garage, but we went from the main room to the back, the bunkhouse, and then I ended up moving away and I started playing shows, and
Were you guys out
and
of?
the guy.
Were all you guys moved out of the house when you were a band?
Well, no. So we had started out at my buddy's house, and so I moved out. I moved in with my daughter's mom and started, gigging around and stuff. So I was out in the city, and my buddy lived out in the country, and so I brought him down for the first rehearsal with the guys I had gotten together, and he basically made a scene. So then I ended up gigging without him.
I made a scene.
Yeah, that's some more deep ape lore right there.
He called our bass player a N-word lover.
Yep, that is what happened.
Oh wow. Oh wow. Yeah, that's not good.
And yeah, thus forevermore. She will. She's a tough chick right there.
A little awkward, huh?
Careful.
All the other members of the band and shit. It's like, yeah, or especially for you.
Now I know what's happening here is I'm talking to Irenic, where I'm talking to Irenic from. Basically, I have to mute and do a thing real quick anyway.
You ever listen to Jamie, or do you know who Jamie is? Yeah. Nope. Your headphone issue. Or I'm hearing feedback.
Oh yeah, I might have to switch my headphones up. Yeah.
Yeah, I always like Jamie.
No better?
Yes, thanks.
Yeah, I enjoy Jamie as well. Okay.
I mean, not because his
Shout out to Jamie Russell.
theology is whack, but I like him just because he's a nice guy. Freaking Seventh-day Adventist. See, this is where, like, I think anybody that follows a group, it is a little too cultish for me. Even if, even I don't know, I can't identify with these it's hard for me not to see them as like political parties. And I was like, can't we just all follow God? Like
Referring to
referring
various Christian factions. Yeah, of course.
See fit, get along.
But we need the book. Gotta have the book. You said Jamie Russell managed to pull a bird. Yeah, I saw that. I've been kind of following loosely. So congratulations, Jamie and Terry.
Sorry, I think somebody's drunk outside or something. So yeah, I guess that's kind of my main problem with any organized religion is all the sects, all the subgroups. You can't agree even in the one faith, and then you have so many different faiths. To try to wrap your head around all of that. So yeah, that's.
Are you familiar with?
I don't subscribe.
I mean, what's your view on the Bible? What's your take on the Bible?
I mean, overall,
Or let me ask you this way: what should be like?
I'm trying to think of like a way right now to not be super adversarial, right? Because I mean, at this point, like, I feel like he should know, but once again, I don't know what he remembers. I'm like, obviously, I've come in kind of guns blazing certain times, so so let's see how I answer. I don't remember.
What role should the Bible play, on your view, in a Christian's life?
Oh, well, there he asked me a different question. What role should the Bible play in a Christian's life?
In a Christian's life, well, I mean, I think it is certainly it holds a set of moral teachings one should abide by. I think some of them are kind of open to interpretation.
So I'm answering in an apologetics way. Yeah.
I mean, if anything, I think there's more value in the New Testament and the teachings of Christ.
I mean, do you consider the Bible a holy book? Do you consider it a holy book, like inspired by God somehow?
Well, I know that's what it claims to be. I mean, amongst other holy books, it's one of those. I don't think it is.
Dodging the question.
Holy book. I don't hold it any higher regard than
Dirty Ape.
Than any other holy book for me personally.
Okay. Do you hold it above the work of men, or hold it to be representative of inspiration?
I don't know what that means. I mean, I know what you mean by it, but I just don't think it's
Well, I mean, I believe it may be inspired, but still the work of men.
Do you consider it to contain true stories?
Ambiguity. Where does inspiration come from? I was listening to Billy Corrigan's podcast. He's talking to Al Jorgensen for Ministry, and Al Jorgensen for Ministry was like, "I've never written a song in my life. I get my inspiration from the universe." And I was like, "Whoa, man, what a concept!" I can't deny whatever he claims that's his experience. I don't know if that's akin to my experience. Like, I always thought it was just, things happen in my brain, like patterns repeating and stuff like that. But, I mean, maybe you're receiving messages from the universe. There's another thing about, like, being the antenna of the universe or something like that. I don't know.
The author's intended?
I believe there's some truth in it, and I think there are portions that are definitely fiction. And I think the authors know that they were writing fiction.
Okay, all right. So
I'm telling him, essentially right here that I think some of the Bible is bullshit. The people who wrote it knew it was bullshit. Particularly stuff like Genesis. I think it's the way it's worded, like the way they wrote it is just like, okay, this is like obviously us, like trying to, in a condensed way, like dumb people down. Like they're asking us all these stupid questions, so you can't answer these questions, but it's like, we're just going to give them a simple, straightforward answer and be like, no, this is the way it is. Right. And they do that with certain things. And then I think in other parts they do, rewrite history, to suit their narrative. There's certain things where you can objectively say that didn't happen the way they said it happened, and so they obviously just lied about history, or whatever. But
yes, I was trying to get to this. So you don't hold that the authors are knowingly passing along untruths, anything like that. They're honestly representing themselves, and as far as they're concerned, they're clear when they're speaking in figures or something like that.
Well, yeah, like the Genesis story, specifically, must be a parable. Even the people who lived at that time know that's a parable.
Right. Do you know who John Walton is? Old Testament.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Scholar. Okay, so he's an ancient Near East scholar. Okay, and his view, and I was pretty impressed with it when I first read it. But it was like, I think it was, what is the God of Genesis or something?
I don't know if the parable is the right terminology there, is it? I don't know.
maybe it's the God of Genesis is this book I was looking at, but he's a pretty famous guy. He's got these, but basically the view is what Genesis is laying out in those chapters there, the creation account is actually it more equates to a temple initiation ceremony, and it has these different elements, and it's not really alluding to creation ex nihilo or anything like that. It's more like God bringing order to an existing materials that are in the story, and so and he's got these different elements, right, that the garden represents and this and that. So is that I'm thinking that's falling into sort of the category that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think I could probably, that's something I'm gonna look into, because I can get behind that interpretation.
Yeah, The Lost World of Genesis 1. That's the name of the book.
Okay.
And he's got a series of books, I think, about the lost world of this and that. But that was his first one that kind of got him on the map. But it's been a while. That's probably 20 years now.
Right. Well, it's still fairly recent. It's not classic rock yet, right?
Right. And obviously a guy like Michael Heiser was on board with that, that kind of view. I think I wasn't sure where he did land on, or where he was at when he died, but I was sad to hear that when he died.
I never did look into that, by the way. I just in one ear out the other.
I was like, wow, that's young.
That's pretty recent.
Michael Heiser. Yeah, that's what I mean. It was, and I don't think maybe it was a COVID thing. I don't think it was a COVID thing.
It was a what thing? I don't even know what he means by that.
All right, well, man, it's been good chatting with you. It's a little after 11 here. It's probably
well, I appreciate you coming in, man.
Business tomorrow being it's Monday.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
before you leave,
chat.
Before you leave, can I mention one thing? I kept thinking about this, but do you listen to Tucker Carlson at all?
Oh, do I?
I generally listen to people.
No, I don't.
Burning on him, honestly, but like what?
Okay, all right. Well, anyway, I subscribe to his new network thing or whatever, and
okay.
And you reminded me of this one story because I just listened, and it's like 2 days or 3 days ago he posted this where he interviewed this guy, and I think he is in California. It could be another state, but I think it's in California, and it has to do with his wife having custody of their little boy, and this all happened, the school and everything, somehow the kid gets to be 10 years old, and he finds out that every day at school he's a she, and the mom is
This actually transitions very nicely into the next series of videos that I'll be doing, because I will be covering one of these stories he's talking about.
The mom was transitioning the little boy since he was 3 years old, and this was all behind the back of the father. And I think it was until the kid was like 10 years old is when he found out, or it might not have been that many.
He's getting some of the facts here wrong, but
years,
sounds like the same
it was
story.
a long time, and the school was all I was just going to mention that to you, man. That's a horror story, and it's probably one you can you probably know that can happen. Oh my God. And then him fighting back.
I'll definitely check it out.
It's just terrible what's going on with that. So I wish you all the best with your family anyway. But thanks for coming in. Have a good night.
Yeah, thank you, brother. And I'll leave this in the private chat if you want to check it out later. It's that the portion that was saved of the interview I did with Darth.
Awesome.
Do with it what you will, but
yeah,
he does.
I'll listen to it.
I'm
gonna end the stream and then I'll listen to that. Cool. Thanks.
All right. Have a good night, my friend.
All right. Good night, everyone.
And then we can remove these from the watch later list. I gone too far. Yeah, there. I don't think there's any more meat in that conversation.
And if I was, and honestly, if I was the woman in a I'm a man, but wouldn't matter, I guess. But because I've been in the situation, and I mean I've proved it out. I keep my promise. I made a vow. Because my problem is my vow that I made was to God. I made a vow to God that, and if you check those vows, there's not any wiggle room to get out of it. except for if you cheat on somebody, because everything is covered, Sammy. Every fucking goddamn thing. You can't get out of the.
All right. And that is where we say goodbye for today. He can't get over his wife leaving him. Yeah, that sounds about right, right? It's a sad fact. Some people never get over it. And on that note, important reminder to be well, be good to yourselves, be kind, and stay trusty. Yeah, Sandy. Nor his mom kicking him out, but that's just my take. Yeah. Women have hurt him, and now he's going to hurt them back, I guess. Stay trusty, everybody, and we'll see you next time